Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Dennis, and today I have a special visitor. His name is Paul. He has a very long history on different topics. We might talk about life, his journey in a religious field, and other experience that he has.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Paul. I've been a Baha'i for about 55 years, and people have asked me when I first became interested in anything really like that. And I suppose my story started when I was around about 6 years old.
Yeah.
Um, I was raised in a very strict Catholic family. My parents were devout Catholic, and as far as I was aware, everybody around me that I knew, I thought the whole. If you'd asked me when I was 6 about the world, I would have said the world was mainly full of white people and they're mainly Catholic. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And I asked the question of my parents. I said, the elderly couple that lived next door, I've never seen them in church. And my mother said, oh, they're not Catholic. I thought, oh, so not everybody's Catholic. Okay. And noted,
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, gosh, I must have been about 10. No, maybe 8. And I was driving with my father doing some deliveries. And I grew up in the town of Huntly in Waikato uh, in the 1950s. Very, very white town, very conservative. Lots of Māori about.
Yeah.
But we used to sort of keep fairly separate, although Dad employed many Māori in the shop, in the dry cleaning business. And so Māori were familiar to me, but I knew nothing really about them. And I remember when I was quite young, the Catholic Church was always full. We had Mass every Sunday, several times every Sunday, in fact. And then once a month, we had a Māori Mass, and that was held of an evening. And we went occasionally, and they were just joyous occasions because there was so much singing.
Yeah.
And they were there, was so enthusiastic, and I just loved it. And I thought, wow, they've got something
Yes.
that we don't seem to have,
Yeah.
because the white type church experience was kind of more formal, a bit more rigid. We do things this way, not that way, that sort of thing. But with the Māori Mass, it was much more alive, if you like. So anyway, I sort of experienced that. And then when I was about eight or so, I was driving with my father. We were doing some deliveries. And for the first time, we went up a hill in Huntly, and I looked back, and it was the first time I'd seen the whole town from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there were 4 large churches in the middle of town, and the Catholic church was right down the other end of town, and it was smaller. And I was surprised at the bigger churches in town, and I said to my father, "Oh, maybe we could try one of those, just a." And as soon as I mentioned it, he was furious. He very, very angry, and he just, they've all broken away from the one true church. And he was so angry that it shocked me. And I didn't know, you don't argue with your father when they're that young. But I remember sort of sitting in the car, sort of, shocked, I suppose, but kind of like thinking about what just happened. And I thought, so I was thinking to myself, so they're all going to hell because they're not Catholic? This doesn't sound like the all-loving God that I've been, learned about. And then the second thought was, maybe there's more to this story than I've been told. And that was the first time I remember. To me, it was quite an adult thought, and I wasn't that bright. And I was surprised at myself for having kind of like an adult type thought like that when I was that young. So anyway, I sort of put that aside.
Yeah.
And that was fine. I went through the schooling system okay. Then when we came to leave primary school, which was an all-Catholic school, we went to Huntly College. And some of the Catholic kids went to a Catholic school, but the majority of us wound up in the general college. And I was surprised when I joined. I started at 13 in the third form, as it was known then.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, there was about 20 Catholics and about 1,200 that weren't. And it was the first time I'd realised that we're serious in the minority. And the first day of school, it was the Jehovah's Witness kids. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses generally don't like Catholics. And their kids decided to make a beeline for all the Catholics. And they were going to convert us. And they came to us with their Bible in hand, and they're pointing us chapter and verse of the Bible that they knew very well. And I was quite shocked because I thought, well, that's my book, and I've never even read it. But they're quoting it chapter and verse. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. So when I went home that night, I got the family Bible down and started reading it for the first time, because we weren't really encouraged to read it because the priest did all that. All you had to do was turn up at Mass and everything was done for you.
Yeah.
And so I started reading it, and I remember reading Genesis, and I thought, well, I started at Genesis, and God created the earth in 6 days, and he separated dark from light, and then it didn't create the firmaments until the 4th day. And I thought, well, if you didn't create the sun and everything till the 4th day, how did you know the other days were days? That puzzled me. And so, okay, fine. So I carried on reading, and then I read about Adam and Eve, and Adam being the first man created on the planet, and then Eve, and then they had 2 sons, Cain and Abel. And then there was jealousy, and Cain killed Abel.
Yeah.
And then it says, then Cain took a wife. I thought, whoa, where did she come from? And then they went to live in a city east of Eden. So I'm thinking there was a city over there. But I thought these were the only people on the planet. So I kind of lost interest at about that point, because things just didn't quite add up. Certainly not literally. So I kind of read a bit more, and I sort of lost interest at about that point because of those questions, really. So I wound up in college, and I went through that. And then back in those days, Catholics were not allowed to attend a non-Catholic service. So the college assembly was considered a service, because they had the assembly and they said some prayers and sang a couple of hymns and stuff. So that was considered by the Catholics to be a service. And so the Catholics were exempt from that. So we used to sit together in a classroom unsupervised while assembly was on. And I thought, oh, okay, they're having some sort of an evil thing in there, but we're out here safe from it. And then some of the older kids started telling dirty jokes. And I thought, we're supposed to be better than them, and they're having a religious service, and we're sitting here telling dirty jokes? Really? This doesn't add up. But I was too little and too young to say anything, but that bothered me. The next year, I had many non-Catholic friends, and we were on our way to school, and we got chatting and talking and got all enthusiastic. And as we were walking, I wound up in the assembly room, and I thought, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. Oh, well, I am. What's to be learned? Mm-hmm. And so the assembly started, and the teachers walked in onto the stage, and everybody stood, and I thought, oh, that's, respect,
Just to cut you short, was your family originally religious?
Sorry?
Is your family before? It was very religious?
Very Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic.
The whole family, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So anyway, the assembly started, the teachers walked in, everybody stood. I thought that was respect. Then the headmaster came in, and then he indicated, and everybody sat down. I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of nice. And then they started the service with the Lord's Prayer. And I thought, well, okay, I know that one. And then there was a quote from the Bible, and I knew it, because I'd heard it many times. So I thought, okay, that's fine. And then there was a hymn, which I didn't know, but it's a hymn. It sounded fine to me. And I couldn't understand why. This seemed quite harmless, quite fine. Why are we banned from this? And I was sort of sitting, looking down, thinking about, processing all these thoughts. And then the headmaster was talking, and in the middle of his conversation, he stopped dead, and the room went very quiet.
Yeah.
And I noticed the silence, and I looked up, and here he was looking straight at me. And he said in a loud voice in front of the entire assembly, "Is there somebody in this room that shouldn't be here?" And I thought, oh my God, he's called me out. So I had to stand and shuffle to the end of the row and walk out to the sound of my own footsteps. And I thought, ooh. And that was the first time I realised that the hate between the different religions and things. And he was, he could have done it a different way. He might have just called me into his office after assembly and said, what were you doing there? But he wanted to sort of make a point, make an example of me, which I thought was a bit cruel, but I thought, okay. So I went through all of that, which is fine. I left school, and then I decided to, I joined, I started a printing apprenticeship in a newspaper in Hamilton, and so up until then it was the Catholics against everybody else. My whole life has been the story of us and them, and it was Catholics, everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, and so I wound up in the workplace, and it was like, right, now you got to join the union. I said, well, why? Well, they look after your interests. I thought, well, things look pretty good here. He said, yes, son, but we had to fight for that. So you joined the union. I said, oh. And the whole thing was us and them again, workers versus bosses. And I kept thinking, well, it's one company. Surely we all have to work together for the company to work. Oh, no, they've got their agenda, we got ours. I thought, oh, okay. So I kind of joined the union reluctantly, and that was okay. And around about that time in the 1950s, there was a huge anti-communist feeling, you know, the red threat, you know, and it was like anything to do with communism was just this massive threat. And there was one guy in the workplace who was an older guy that nobody had much to do with. Anyway, I wound up working with him one afternoon, and we were just working away and chatting. And I asked him a little bit about himself, and it turned out he's a communist. And I thought, ooh, one of them, ooh. And so we spent the afternoon talking about it. I said, well, how does it work? What's, you know? And he explained a lot about communism, and I thought, well, there's some really quite good ideas there, but overall, not for me, thank you. So when I got home that night, my dad was saying, you know, how's, you know, work today? Oh, yeah, fine. What do you? I said, oh, I wound up spending all afternoon talking to this guy who was a communist. Wow, he hit the roof again. He was huge. I said, Dad, calm down. Nothing happened. We talked. We listened to each other.
So which year was that?
This would have been the mid-60s.
60s. So
Yeah.
communism was also still around.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. And the war in Vietnam is starting at that point, because we have to stop the communists heading south and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I said to my father, look, Dad, nothing happened. We talked about it, and I decided all on my own that it wasn't for me. Nothing to worry about here. So that he calmed down about that, which is fine. And that was fine. I carried on working, and then being still a practicing Catholic, the Saturday paper was always the big paper. And so Friday night we're putting the paper together for the Saturday, and they said to me, "Oh, you're religious. You can make up the church page." And so I'm putting all these little adverts in for the church notices, and this was a hot metal type in those days. I picked up an ad and it said Baha'i Faith, and I looked at it, and there was a drawing of the Wilmette Temple, and it had Baha'i Faith, and I remember reading it correctly, Baha'i, pronouncing it correctly. And I remember thinking distinctly, oh, if ever I was to change religion, I'd be one of those because it sounds cool. You know, and immediately forgot about it. That was fine.
Yeah.
So I carried on working, and then around about that time, the troubles in Northern Ireland flared up again. And that absolutely appalled me, because I thought, they're both Christians. They both believe in God and Jesus and the Bible, and they're killing each other. It's all rubbish.
Yeah.
I'm not interested on, and at that point I basically walked away from the church. If Catholics say that that's okay, that's what they're doing, I don't want a bar of it. So I stopped going to church at that point. And around about that time, in about the mid-60s, the hippie movement was starting, and I became vaguely aware that there's this group of this global brotherhood, and that appealed to me. And global brotherhood, all you have to do is grow your hair, drop out of society. We're going to form our own society. Wonderful. And the more I learned about it, the more excited I got about it, and I joined. I was a hippie, full-time hippie, and everything that went with it.
Yeah.
And that was great. By then I'd finished my apprenticeship. I went to Australia, hitchhiked up and down Australia, and did all sorts of different works, from cane cutting to forestry work to all sorts of stuff, meeting different people. But I was still kind of this hippie. By then I'd grown my hair long, and I'd got an earring, and
just to cut you short, so where did the happy start from? Was it here in New Zealand or somewhere else? Or
all around the world.
So it's something like
the hippie
a long
movement.
history, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a global phenomenon, certainly in the Western world.
Okay.
Yeah, very much in the Western world. And we discovered, by then people were starting to look into other religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. Buddhism was very popular. Yeah. And Hinduism, not so much Hindu per se, but the Hare Krishna movement of it. And so people are looking at mysticism in various forms, and people are going to Marrakesh, places like Marrakesh and Morocco and all those sorts of places, and go, we've been there. It's exciting. And that was all wonderful. And then I started to realise that the hippies were no better than anybody else. We were hypocritical, and it was the us and them. There was the cool and the uncool. There were people that listened to the right music and the rubbish music. So again, us and them. And I thought, really? And I was looking, I suppose I was looking for something. I had looked into politics as well before I became a hippie. And I guess while I was a hippie, really, I looked at politics for a bit. And in New Zealand, really, there was the Labour government, the National government.
Yeah.
And they both had their agenda. National was for the farmers and the businessmen, and Labour was for the workers. And I remember saying to the guys that I worked with, I said, well, we're one country. We need to export to survive. And I thought the farmers were the main ones because they produced all the goods to get it, And the answer was, well, where would they be without us for them to get it to market? They need the truck. They need the wharfies. They need to train people. They need the truck drivers. Where would they be without us?
So I was thinking, do you think do you want to push it a little bit front, or that's okay?
No, it's fine. It's right.
Okay.
It's okay for you?
No, because I see you're moving this way, so I thought maybe...
No, I can't see it. I'm good.
You're good with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so they... and I kept thinking, well, it's one country. Surely, we've got to get along as one country. And so National and Labour didn't really appeal to me, but there was another party called Social Credit, and that had quite a lot of appeal to me, but it just, by then I was sort of more into the hippie thing, looking for a new, completely new way of life.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the 60s, I was becoming quite jaded as far as the hippie movement was concerned. And I decided that, drugs everywhere, there was lots of freedom, but nobody had a plan.
Yeah.
Really. And they were hypocritical as everybody else. Nobody had a plan. We were just sort of getting stoned all the time and nothing. And I thought even then that at some point, somebody's got to do the work. It's all very well dropping out, but there's got to be money to pay the rent and buy the food, surely,
Yeah.
And the only ones that I ever had any respect for were the ones that tried to go out and start communes. And I thought I had a lot of respect for them because at least they tried something. None of the communes survived. Maybe one. There's still one going, I think, in New Zealand. But so by then I wound up flatting with I was in a flat in Auckland. And in the flat there was about 6 of us. And one of the girls there was a Baha'i. And I'd heard about it before, but that was, when she started talking about it, by then I just wasn't interested because to me it was just all religion. And I thought, well, it's just, she kept asking me to meetings and I thought, oh, no, it's religion. No, it's a load of rubbish. Anyway, I decided, in a weak moment, to go to one of the meetings because I was in a particularly bad mood and I was in the mood for an argument. And I'm going to go along to this meeting and sort these nutcases out. And to this day, I've got no idea what the meeting was about. But towards the end of it, I was standing next to an elderly gentleman called Hugh Blundell. Lovely, lovely gentleman in his suit. He was about in his 90s when I met him, tall, slender gentleman. And I said to him, so what is it? What's the guts of it? And he explained, well, there's only 3 things, really. We believe in the oneness of God. There's only one creator, known all around the world by many different names. I thought, well, what do you mean? I said, well, the Jews might call him Yahweh or Jehovah. We call him God. The Muslims call him Allah. It's different names, same God. I thought, really? I quite like the sound of that. Okay, what's the second thing? He said, we believe that all mankind is one. Well, I've always believed that. And then the third thing was religion. All religion is one. And I piffed him. Yeah, right. How can that possibly be? And he explained this thing called progressive revelation. And I remember, like I said, I wasn't that bright, but this just made so much sense to me. Each prophet following the next prophet, like chapters of a book, and each prophet bringing the same spiritual teachings, but different social teachings for the needs of the times. And that just made so much sense to me. And I thought, oh my God, that would change everything. And so I started getting really interested at that point, turning up to lots of meetings And I thought, but it's utopian. It could never work, surely. There must be a flaw with it somewhere. So every time I'd turn up to a meeting, I was, oh, yeah, well, what about this? What about that? And there was always a logical answer. And this went on for several months. And then finally I met a couple who were living in Auckland at the time called John and Celia Carr. And they were older Baha'is, and they'd been they were English people, but they'd been Jews. And I thought, so you were Jews? Yes. So you're Baha'is? Yes. So you accepted Jesus? Yes. And Muhammad? Yes. And I thought, it is true, it is possible. All right, I'm in. And I'd run out of, and so I decided to become a Baha'i. I decided, that's it, I've run out of arguments. This is it. And I remember spending quite a bit of time on my own talking to God, thinking, really? Is this it? And I, in deep meditation, just in this personal conversation with God, thinking, surely, okay. And so when I decided, right, I'm going to be a Baha'i. So just before I did,
Can you just move the microphone a little bit this way? Yeah.
So basically, when I decided to become a Baha'i, I decided to. Within Catholics, they used to have a thing called retreats. You'd go away to this place like a monastery for a retreat for a few days.
Yeah.
And I'd been to one when I was quite young, and I knew where it was, and I just phoned them up and I said, look, is it possible to come for a few days? I've got some things to think about. Oh, have you been before? He said, oh, yes, I was a Catholic. And he said, oh, what are you now? I said, I'm looking at Baha'i. Oh, yes, you'd better come. And so I came there for 3 days, and they left me completely on my own. The whole place was empty. It was between sessions or whatever. And I had a whole dormitory to myself. And then they'd ring the bell, and I'd go down, and my dinner was just waiting for me, in this empty, room, an empty dining room. And so I was left on my own for about 3 days, and I was reading all Baha'i books at the time.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, I thought, yep, that's it. So when I came back, I wound up at the Baha'i Centre, and the National Assembly was meeting this particular night.
Yeah.
And it was a feast night, and lots of the people there, and the NSA were meeting, and the place was crowded. And I said to one of the older lads, I think I'm ready to become a Baha'i. Oh, great. Come into the library, we'll sign the card and all that. Great. So I went into the library, and they brought out a declaration card, and I'm filling in my name and address and all that, and then date of birth, all that stuff. And then, wonderful, new Baha'i, yay! And they went out and told everybody, yay, new Baha'i, way! And then, oh, great, wonderful, congratulations and all that. And then there was a second wave. Wow! I said, what? He's over 21. I said, what's that got to, oh, you can be on an LSA. Oh, what's an LSA? So that was my introduction to the faith.
So, if you go back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
so by the time you met that couple that you met, the ones
Yes.
that were Jewish, and
Yep.
they kind of became Baha'is,
Mm-hmm.
did they give you something that you felt like, apart from just
No.
them declaring being
No.
a Baha'is?
They were just part of the Auckland community at the time. They were just people.
Mm.
I'd seen them around,
Okay.
and I was just talking to them, and it was like that was just that realization that they had come from a Jewish background, strong Jewish background, and then they're now Baha'is, and that was just it is possible, just meeting people that had done it.
So the thing of us and them for you, it was, oh, actually, these people can solve the issue about us and them.
Correct.
Just like all of
Correct.
us instead of
Correct.
us and them.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was huge to me, because the other thing that really impressed me was the diversity within the Baha'i community. There was no division at all. People of all ages and of all cultures. And there was several Persian Baha'is there that I'd met. In fact, I wondered what happened when the first time I heard Persian chanting. I thought I'd never heard it before, and I thought the guy was having an episode. It sounded like he was talking backwards, and I thought, really? Oh, okay. But, you get used to all sorts of things, and to this day I just delight in people of
That's
different
hilarious.
nationalities, different cultures, I love accents, and I
Yeah.
like to identify where an accent comes from, So that's kind of how I became a Baha'i. And then the trouble was that having declared as a Baha'i, I was still in Auckland. And from my hippie days, of course, you decide to do something and then you get tested. And I was tested. And I kept failing. And I won't go into the details, but there was many tests and many failures. And at the end of it, I realised what happened was one particular night I was in in a different flat. I was on my own. And one of the Baha'is came all the way across town on foot to meet me so that we'd walk on foot to the Baha'i Centre for the feast. And when he got there, I was too stoned to move. I couldn't move. I was high as a kite. And he just left without me. And I was feeling so guilty. I thought, Paul, are you a Baha'i or not? Make your mind up. And I thought, yeah, I really need to be a Baha'i. I've got to do something. And so I then, the first national convention I went to was a couple of weeks after that. And there was a call for Baha'is to go to the South Island, and particularly Christchurch. And I decided, yep, I volunteered to go to Christchurch. And but back in those days, to get a job with your trade, you had to do it through the unions. And it just so happened that there was no job available in Christchurch at that time. But they said there is a position at a print shop in Nelson. So I decided to go to Nelson instead. And in going to Nelson, there was an elderly lady there who was already Baha'i, Alex Cookson, wonderful woman.
Yeah.
And then another couple had come in from Canada, Rex and Marlene Harrison. And so there was a core of us now, and they're all deep in Baha'is. And you mix with people that are going to be good for you. And so we all worked together, and about a year later we formed the first local assembly of Nelson. And I credit those people with saving my life. Had it not been for them, and I kept falling off the wagon, I would never have survived. So, you can't run away from a test. But basically my time in Nelson gave me time to build up the strength to deal with the tests. And so that's kind of how that all happened. But, the first time I met Kay, my wife, she was at university, and I met her. She'd been a Baha'i about 3 months before me. And I met her at the Baha'i Centre, I think it was. And she was just with a bunch of people, and I just, I looked at her and I thought, oh, she's all right. And but then I immediately wrote her off because, she's at university, you're a factory worker. Son, she's out of your league. Just don't even, But anyway, we started going out with a group of people, a whole bunch of youth, going to movies together and stuff like that. So I got to kind of know her in that sense. And then I went to Nelson, and I came back once. It must have been my mother's birthday or something. I flew back up to Auckland, and after, I can't remember exactly what was going on, but I did remember that the Sunday following it, I decided to go around and visit a flat with a bunch of guys that I used to know, just to catch up. Cigarette and a cup of coffee and a catch up. And so while we were there chatting away, there was a knock on the door, and Kay walked in because she was coming to visit the same people. And our eyes met, and that was it. That was it.
So the love on the first sight.
Yeah, there's something happened. It was electricity, something, Anyway, I then went back to Nelson, and so we started our relationship with letters. We started writing to each other.
Oh.
So our courtship was by letters. Remember letters?
Yeah.
Long before emails, texts. Yeah, so it was all that. So that was really good. So then I came back up to Auckland, and we met and married. Well, we met and we were courting, and it was, our parents. This is the interesting thing too, because you get to know each other, and then you sort of get invited around to meet the parents.
Yeah.
And her mother was she was very much a lady, and she couldn't stand guys with long hair.
You had a long hair.
I still had long hair, shoulder length hair,
Yeah.
earring, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now I don't know whether because by this time Kay was in her early 20s, and I don't know whether her family thought, oh, she hasn't got a man yet, she's going to be left on the shelf. Maybe, I don't know. But I was the first guy that she actually invited round for dinner. And she told her mother, he has got long hair. Behave yourself. So anyway, I turned up for dinner, and And unknown to me, I thought I was just going to meet, her parents. But her brother, who was 10 years older than her, and his wife were also there. And so rather than just a dinner, it felt more like a job interview. Really. And I was sitting
So
there.
what did they ask you? Like,
Well, they were just looking at me down their nose. Oh, who is this loser? Hippie with long hair. Oh, going to defile our daughter. Oh, all that stuff, So anyway,
did I say this or you're thinking
no,
about it?
I'm it's just a look, and my brain is filling in all the details.
Yeah.
So anyway, they started asking me questions. Oh yeah, are you working? I said yeah. I worked for the at the time the New Zealand Herald. Oh yeah, and they look. Oh yeah. And in my mind, their speech bubble was, oh, probably a paper boy. And I said, oh yes, I've been with them for a while. You've been with them for a while. Yeah. I'm a compositor. A compositor. You're a tradesman. Yeah. I'm a tradesman. I got my trade certificate. And both of their on my father-in-law and the two men, their eyebrows went up. Oh, tradesman, one of us.
Oh, okay.
And then I was doing okay at the Waikato Times.
Yeah.
And they thought I had promise, so they sent me to a place called Outward Bound. They sponsored me to go to Outward Bound. And Outward Bound was one of those, it was a 3 or 4 week camp where you climb mountains and abseiled and whitewater canoeing and all that stuff. And the point of Outward Bound was not so much to climb mountains and stuff, but to prove to yourself that you could do more than you thought you could. That was the point of it.
I see. So they sponsored you to go there?
Yes, it's not cheap to go there, but the firm sponsored me to go there.
So
anyway, I'm telling my, the people out at dinner, and it was the Cobham Outward Bound School, and named after Viscount Cobham. And Kay's mother was a huge fan of Viscount Cobham. So first of all, the eyebrows, tradesman, eyebrows. And then Cobham Outward Bound, and suddenly mother-in-law's, oh, she
knows about that.
So it's like Britain's Got Talent, and the tick, tick, tick. And that was great. And my sister-in-law, who is, she was the one that kept the conversation going.
Oh,
and
okay.
I love it a bit, still do to this day, And she was the one that sort of kept the conversation going, And so it was an interesting time. So we got engaged, and in fact it was Sitzer and Gail de Boer's wedding that we attended.
Yeah.
And I told a story. We had our 50th wedding anniversary a while ago, and I told a story about how I said people said to me, how did you first meet? And I told them that story. So when where was I going? Yeah, the wedding. Oh yes. When I asked Kay to get when I actually proposed to her, there was no big romantic thing. It was
no
like
flowers, nothing.
No. We're at at somebody else's wedding, and I
took advantage of that.
Well, I didn't. It just. I mean, most of my life has been a good idea at the time. Never really thought things through. Still don't. But Kay was there, and they were just got married, and they're driving off. Yeah. And I just looked at Kay and said, "Well, what do you reckon?" She says, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, for us." And she said, "What? Get engaged?" I said, "Well, yeah. What do you reckon?" She said, "Yeah, all right."
And that's it.
That was it. That was the engagement. No big going down on one knee, nothing. I just kind of thought, well, maybe we should. Yeah, maybe we should. But it was just, and I told him with the great romantic gestures, "What do you reckon?" Very Kiwi. No romance whatsoever.
I think one of the issues that people have, like young people who are trying to get married.
Yep.
I think that the more you make it more flashy and this kind of thing, then the marriage is going to last for long.
Yes.
But most of the time, it's like the more flashy it is, sometimes doesn't even last at all.
That's right.
Look for you. I've been married for how many years now?
55 years.
55 years. And you just proposed by saying...
Yeah, what do you reckon?
What do you reckon?
But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's materialism today.
Yeah.
Every girl wants the big day.
Yes.
The big dress. Yeah. And all that stuff. And I thought, well, really? It doesn't have to be that way at all. It's about more than just the big day. There's... a lot more.
I think it's just society pressure, right?
Yeah,
so people have the competition kind of mindset, and
Sure.
also the pressure is like, if you're not flashy in your wedding or something
Yeah.
like that, then the person doesn't really love you that much.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I think
No.
because how many flashy weddings are there, and
Yep.
not so many people last that long anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting too that, I mean, these days, if anything happened to Kay, God forbid, and I wound up wanting to get married again, I wouldn't know where to start.
No.
I mean, I don't know whether anybody would be interested in me or not.
It's a
I
long
wouldn't be able to. I
process.
wouldn't be able to tell the signs. So I said to my sister, if that happened, you're going to have to find somebody for me. That stuff. Because I haven't a clue.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to a friend of mine about that once too, and she was in her 30s, no, late 20s, and she'd had a couple of boyfriends, and she'd come close to marriage. And I was talking to her, and I said, well, God, what's courting like these days? It must be a minefield. And she said, well, it can be. But I say to any of my boyfriends, I'm a virgin, and it's staying that way. And if we still want to go out, that's great, but them's the rules. And I thought, really? How do the guys respond to that?
They
And
run
she
away.
said some of them quite like it, actually.
Mm.
And because in my day it was like nobody said anything, and I'd sort of make a move, and if she responded, okay, and then I'd make another move, and okay, and
Yeah.
But for the ones that stopped me, I kind of respected more. Interesting. It's really quite interesting. You know.
Yeah, I think it's just psychological kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
People have it.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
anyway, that was really good. So we, when we got married, we shifted down to Napier because then I just said to, beforehand, I mean, the big thing was getting married. Kay's parents came from a strict Presbyterian background.
Well, can you explain more about?
Well, Presbyterian is
yeah.
a sect of Christianity. It's within Christianity, there's the main, I guess you could say, of the 2 billion people on the planet, 2 billion Christians on the planet, that is, about 1 billion are Catholics and 1 billion are everything else.
Oh, okay.
And so the great divides came in the 17th and 1800s when various people broke away from Catholicism, like Martin Luther, you might have heard of him, and he formed the Lutheran Church, and John Wesley, and various people broke off to form their own subgroups of Christianity. And Kay's family were from the John Knox Presbyterian version, very strong Christian, but not Catholic. So back in those days, as I said, Catholics didn't associate with anybody that weren't Catholics.
Yeah.
So Kay's family was strict Presbyterian, mine was strict Catholic, but when they met each other, they were lovely. They all got along fine, which is great. And then, we're engaged. Oh, good. And then we set a date for the wedding, and big shock horror. Which church? And so we thought about it and said, well, how about we have an outside wedding? Outside, nobody's church. And so we did. We had an outside wedding, and as Baha'is, we don't drink alcohol, so we decided that this is going to be a completely alcohol-free wedding, because we thought if we supplied alcohol for the drinkers, they'd all just gather in one corner, and we wanted everybody to mix. So no alcohol, we're just having sparkling grape juice, and that was it, take it or leave it, And everybody had a great time, and my father and one uncle didn't turn up because my father felt strongly that as a Catholic he just could not attend a non-Catholic service.
Okay.
But 30 years later he came to my daughter's wedding.
Wow. Yeah.
So people can change.
Yeah, people do change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my dad, he wanted to celebrate it but not there. So he had his suit on and he was in a park somewhere else, dressed for the occasion but not there.
Yeah.
And I respected him for that, but still it hurt a bit that he wasn't there,
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how we got. And we, as I said, when he got married, we went down to Napier we met with the NSA to say we're just getting married. All we want to do is get out of Auckland and just start a life afresh, So we said, we'll go anywhere you like. And then they just said, the Napier LSA is under strength. I said, okay, we'll go there. And save that LSA, if you like, with numbers.
Yeah.
And so that's where it started, really. And, that's kind of my
Long journey.
journey, I guess.
So how did you find yourself in Haifa? Like you
Just got off the cheroot and there it was. No,
like you have some nice stories about you met different types of hand of the cause and all these stories.
Well, the Hands of the Cause, the first one really was Collis Featherston, and he was the Hand of the Cause for Australasia and the Pacific Islands, so he came to New Zealand quite a lot. So I met him on several occasions, and he was lovely, and I said to him once, we were just talking, and I said, I came from a Catholic background. And he took me aside and he said, Catholics make good Baha'is. I said, why is that? Well, you've got a sense of discipline and your belief in God. And I thought, okay. So I met Col on a number of times because he was backwards and forwards quite a lot.
Yeah.
But the other ones that came to New Zealand over the years would only come for once or twice. So I've met Mr. Fazy. Can't remember much about him. I knew what he looked like, but John Robarts came through, and I remember talking to him, or his main message to us was 500 removers of difficulties and the long obligatory prayer. Very, very strong in those areas.
Yeah.
And I remember taking that on board, Dr. Mahaja came through, and he was all about travel teaching and just teaching. And we were in Nelson when he came through, and he was, being travelling in those days, we'd go down to the post office box to collect the mail, and there was some mail there for him, and one of them was from his daughter, and it just said, don't send any more postcards until you've sent a proper letter. And I thought, the time they spent away from their families, and that really got me.
Yeah.
About the suffering that they went through for the faith.
Yes.
Always travelling, always away. And in fact, I met with Nancy Rishworth, and her father was, was it Nancy? No, it was Grace Mannins. Her father was Enoch Alinga.
Oh, Enoch Alinga?
Yes.
Okay.
And I met Enoch Alinga. He came to New Zealand once, and there's a picture of him in the Baha'i Centre, or there was a picture of him in the Baha'i Centre in Auckland. And Grant Hinton Miller, I don't think Grant ever met him, but he sang about all the Hands of the Cause, and he used the line in one of his songs regarding Enoch Alinga, his face aglow with loveliness. And that's exactly as he was. When I met him, he was just aglow. And he had a cheeky sense of humour.
Yeah.
But he was just such a lovely man. It was just not enough time with him, I've met with Rahir Khanum on 3 occasions.
Oh, Rahir Khanum, yeah.
And all of the times when I've met with her, the encounters have always been somewhat unpleasant. And I know the reasons, but it was like the first time I met her was she came to New Zealand. No, wait a minute. The first time I met her must have been in 84. She'd just been on a tour of the Pacific, and we had to... normally she meets with the pilgrims in small groups. Yeah. But this particular time, she'd only just got back and there was not enough time. So she met with everybody at once in Haifa, in one of the big rooms there. And she asked each of us to stand and say where we were from, our names and where we were from. And so many people there were from Los Angeles, and they were Persians. And she would, every time they'd stand up and say their name in Persian, where you're from Los Angeles, she'd just roll her eyes like that. Oh. Anyway, she then addressed them all, and she spoke in perfect Farsi. When she was looking around, she, where are you from? Oh, I'm Paul Vesey from Auckland, New Zealand. Oh, and where is your family from? I said, oh, my mother was Lebanese. She said, oh, you are not Chinese. Sit down. So, okay. And then the second time I met her, she came to New Zealand in 77, I think it was. No. Oh, I can't remember my dates now. She came to New Zealand in 77. That was the first time I met her. And I just happened to be working in South Auckland at the time. And I was between appointments. I was a salesman, and I was between appointments. And I heard a plane was coming in, so I went out to the airport. And I was one of about 6 or 7 people there to greet her. And she walked around, she shook our hands, and she got to me, and I shook her hand, and I said, "I love her." And she looked at me, she said, "It's not a greeting." I thought, "Oh, sorry," so, and so the encounters that I've had with her have been a bit like that, I thought, oh, okay, fine. But who else? Peter Kahn, Dr. Peter Kahn, he's been here a few times. He was on the Universal House of Justice, I think, for a while, But yeah, and there's a few. Mr. Furutan.
Furchan, yeah.
Of course, on pilgrimage and a couple of times since. Just a lovely man, And, but, meeting people that have been the Knights of Baholar, travelling all around the world, and the things I've been through, and living in remote places, and I really warm to the pioneers. I mean, the pioneers in New Zealand, for example, you hear of, for a long time, Alan and Trudy Culling lived on Niue Island, and I just knew them as the Cullings from Niue, or the Whitleys from Vanuatu, I think, or Kiribati, one of the two, and I knew of them from there, and then you sort of get to meet them and think, oh, you're the Whitleys from there, oh,
yeah,
and now we've become very good friends because I just love pioneers and what they've sacrificed. They give up everything.
So talking about pioneer, can you tell me your time on, you said you traveled some few countries, right?
Yes.
So can you tell me your story about pioneering?
Well, generally we travelled as kind of as tourists, really, but the most recent one I did was I went to the Czech Republic, and that was just this time last year, in fact. What happened there was the Universal House of Justice gave New Zealand the city of Brno in the Czech Republic as a goal.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought, when I first heard that, I thought, oh, yeah, fine, whatever. Didn't think much of it. But then one of the ladies that I used to flat with, her name was Sue Kerr, and she had lost her husband about 4 years ago. And she had decided to go there because she had one of her children living in Portugal and another one in London, I think. And so by basing herself in Brno, she was within easy flying distance to see them.
Yeah.
And so she went, and when I heard she was going, I thought, really? What are you going to do up there? She says, I've got no idea. I'm going to meet people by sitting in the mall and doing my knitting. And I thought, I could do that, all except for the knitting, and so when she came back after 3 months, I was on the phone to say, what did you do? What did you get up to? And so we got really talking quite a lot about that. The result of it is I decided to go. And I went there this time last year, and on the way there, when I was looking at the map and everything, I'd booked in with a travel agent and stuff, and I looked at the map. We're flying from Dubai to Prague, and we virtually fly over Israel. I thought, is it possible to go down for a 3-day visit? I haven't been there for 20 years. And so the upshot of that was yes. So I flew into Tel Aviv, and then managed to get to Haifa, stay there for 3 days and back, And I left there about 3 days before Israel attacked Iran for the first time, and everything shut down.
Okay.
And I got to Prague, and people said, "Oh, you're right. Where are you? What's going on?" I didn't know. I did put the TV on, and I could tell something had happened.
Yeah.
But Iran and Israel. Okay. I got out just in time by the sound of things. But I mean, my time in Prague, in Brno, was wonderful because it was the first time ever that I'd travelled on my own.
Okay.
And travelling alone meant that I could talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Because when you're travelling with somebody, you talk to each other. So travelling on my own, it was just, I could engage with anybody. I didn't have anybody else to worry about, just me, and I just talk to anybody. And I do that. And I made sure that I had a stack of little booklets that I got from the Czechs. And they were just basically quotes of Abdu'l-Baha and prayers and stuff like that in Czech. And so anybody that helped me out for any reason, I'd use that excuse. Oh, thank you for your help. Here's a gift. Thank you for your help. That stuff.
Yeah.
So I spent most of my time just talking to people, giving out booklets, sowing seeds. I also had a bunch of books in English, and if I met any English-speaking people there, I'd give them one of those. Got to practice your English. That sort of stuff. And so it was really good. I was there for 3 months, and I travelled. Most of the time was in Brno, but when I arrived in Brno, I was only there for about 3 weeks, and then they had the Brno was host for the motorcycle Grand Prix, and there was no accommodation anywhere. So I then went from Brno to Prague and spent about 2.5 weeks in Prague, and just checked into a cheap hotel and just used that as my base, and and then stayed there while and I love Prague. I thought I could live here. This is great. And I found the teaching so easy because people would say to me things like, "Oh, where are you from?" "New Zealand." And there'll be this pause. "Oh, All Blacks." "Yeah, that's us, yeah." "How long are you here for?" 3 months. 3 months? Why? "Well, I'm here to help out the local Baha'is." "Well, what's that?" "Oh, it's my faith, my religion." And at that point, they're rapidly losing interest until I say, "Yeah, but don't think of it as a religion. Think of it as a new system of global economics, that actually works.
Yeah.
A new system of government based on consultation, not debating. And the only one on the planet where nobody wants to be the leader."
Yeah.
Now we've got a conversation going because they're all looking for answers.
Yes.
And religion obviously doesn't have it. Politics doesn't have it. Well, where else? There must be something. And so I'm just trying to sort of float the idea as a possibility. It's worth checking out, that stuff.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that. And then also helping out the Baha'is in whatever endeavours I was doing. Used to go to their children's classes, used to go to the youth gatherings and just be there with the Baha'is. And, at the children's classes, we used to have them, we had a meeting once a month at a community centre. And people would turn up and bring their kids, and then a lot of the adults there weren't Baha'is. But what they'd done is they'd open it with whoever's talking would welcome everybody, and we're going to start with a prayer or two, then we'll have a couple of songs, then the youth will go into those 2 rooms there, and the rest of us, we've got an activity. And so the first time I went, it was like the activity there was a couple there, and she was a fitness instructor. So rightio, everybody up, and we're doing aerobics. Everybody's doing aerobics, and that went on for about 20 minutes. And well, for most of them, not for me. And then when that was finished, he got up and he said, "Right, we're doing Latin dancing," and so everybody's up doing Latin dancing, and half of them just came for the dancing. But when you're talking to people, I managed to speak to one couple, and their main agenda they weren't really interested in the faith per se, but they were interested in practicing their English. So we're sort of talking, about things in general, also the faith, but in English. And then another guy that I spoke to, he was a professional soldier. He was a captain in the Czech army.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, you're worried about Ukraine and all that?" He said, "Oh, yeah. What happens if the Chinese join the Russians and they head this way again?" And he said, "Yeah, we've talked about that." I thought, "Oh." So they're really quite concerned about everything that's going on over there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because in New Zealand, we're so lucky because our nearest neighbour is a 3-hour flight away. Over there, they've got neighbours all around them. In the Czech Republic, they've got 4 countries on their borders, and Ukraine's only 2 over. So they're very, what are they up to? What are they up to? All that stuff. So they're very aware of that, and we're just quite sheltered from it, really. So, yeah, that's kind of, So, I would be going back again there. I would have been there again this year, but, circumstances have changed. So for me personally, I may look at going back again next year because I'd like to go back because I met a lot of friends there, and it's like I feel there's part of my heart was left there, Yeah. So, but this time in my winter, because I'm getting away every winter I've decided that I'm still working at 79 years old.
Yeah.
And my job is mainly a hobby.
Yeah.
And I like my road trips. I like getting out and selling souvenirs to retailers all around the South Island. But I've been doing it for a number of years, and my busiest time in November and February.
Yeah.
And in the winter, not so busy. So these days I'm taking all the winters off from now on, and every winter I'm going to be doing something, for the faith or whatever, So, So being in Kerikeri at the moment, it's wonderful being in a brand new community, and although I'm still in New Zealand, it's still just like it's different. How do you do things differently up here? You know, and I get to share what we do. I get to learn what you do, and I'm full of encouragement for people of my generation that have got time and maybe a little bit of money, but just go and experience a different community for a while.
Yeah.
Just do that. So my mission at the moment is pioneering, very keen to promote pioneering and very much to promote seniors and what we can do. How can we be useful, really?
Yes.
You know, we've got years of experience and knowledge. How can we share it, you know? So
True,
that's what's going on at the moment.
That's cute.
Any questions?
I'll be more interested, like, how was your childhood and all these kind of things, and like, for example, how do you view the politics here, and how do you separate yourself from that kind of effects?
Well, politics, it's an interesting one. You get people, it's very polarizing. As Baha'is, we don't talk about politics.
So how do you maneuver through that kind of thing?
Oh, well, when people sort of start talking about stuff, I generally don't contribute to any discussion, nor do I listen. But if they ask me my opinion, I mean, several years ago, it was somebody was having a go at Winston Peters. And what do you think of him? I said, well, I think he's a very sharp dresser. You know, and, well, it's not what I'm talking about. Well, you know, what do you think of Trump? Well, he wears a nice tie and he's never boring. You know, I said, I've never met the man. I don't know him. I can't comment.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff.
Yeah.
And they kind of want you to comment, to be on their side or not or whatever. But, you know, as soon as you take a side, it just goes nowhere. You know, it's just, I mean, politics doesn't work. I mean, I believe that most politicians go into politics because they're good people and they want to make a difference, really. But the system simply doesn't allow it. You know, you go into politics, you've got a great idea. You've got to sell it, firstly to your party.
Yeah.
And then if that gets on the agenda, then it goes into then you've got to sell the idea to Parliament before it's even debated. It's got to go into the basket and you pull it. Oh, that's an idea. We'll debate that today. And no matter how good the idea is, your party might support it. The other party's going to reject it because they're the opposition, and it's their job to oppose. And I think, really, this is nuts. I mean, if you ran a business like you ran a country, the business wouldn't last 6 months.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
And people are sort of locked into it's either this or that. I thought, well, what about a third option? There's got to be another option. And the interesting thing with all that is that most Christians, they don't like the terminology of New World Order. And so, but that's what we're talking about, a New World Order. And they get very, very worried about that terminology. And my answer to that is, well, you like the current one? The current one's no damn good, is it? We've got to have a new order. You know, it's that stuff. I mean, it's kind of, people get fearful. I mean, we were travelling in Italy about 20 years ago, and it was just before the Euro came in. And we were on a train with these two ladies, an older lady and her daughter.
Yeah.
And they were sort of like quite worried about the coming Euro. And I said, oh, you know, you'll be fine. You know, it's just the name of a currency. I said, New Zealand, we changed from pounds, shillings and pence to dollars in 1967. It took us maybe 2 weeks to get used to the new currency. Yeah, you're fine. And she said, yeah, I know. I said, but? She said, oh, it's our lira. Yeah, get over it, you know.
Yeah.
And so a couple of years later, I was picking up German hitchhiker. And I said, oh, what's it like now that the Euro's here? He said, oh, the cost of coffee has doubled. I said, that's because you're still thinking in marks. You know, give it another couple of years, you won't even think about marks. It's just euro.
Yeah.
You're fine. And so all of Europe united, well, most of Europe united with one currency. Czech Republic didn't, actually. Neither did Poland or Norway. So there's a few that didn't, but all their neighbours have. You know, so it's, you know, but I mean, you know, the sun came up the next morning, the kids went to school, nothing changed, everything was fine.
Yeah.
But people fear change. And the only thing that's ever permanent, you know, the only thing that's permanent in life is change. Everything's always changing. And we fear it. We don't want change. We don't like change, but everything's always changing.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah.
So one last question.
Sure.
So if your grandchildren are going to watch this one, what will you tell them?
Going to watch what? Sorry?
If your grandchildren are going to watch this podcast, what are you going to tell them? Or your children?
My grandchildren.
Yeah.
I've left the money hidden under the... No, just,
like an advice because they're young? Because the same advice that you give to young
Well, what I did
or
with
something
my
like
children and my grandchildren when I was bringing them up, when we were bringing them up, we taught them about the faith. Of course we did.
Yeah.
But really, it's their journey. They make up their own minds.
Yeah.
And I made that clear to them. Don't just be Baha'is because we are. Do your own investigation.
Yeah.
Seriously. And so as a result of that, my eldest daughter's a Baha'i, and she's very much involved. Her middle sister was, but she's kind of drifted, but it's still in her heart. And the youngest one's never really been involved at all, but she's got a very strong sense of justice, and she's quite a good defender of the faith. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
As far as my grandsons, they're still, the middle one is probably the most involved. The eldest one is doing university, doing chemistry at the moment, so he's more involved with study and stuff, and not so much with the faith. And the youngest one has just started university, and he's going to, he goes to youth gatherings. I don't think he's reaffirmed yet as such, but he hasn't rejected it either. So I think, it's fine. It's their journey, really.
So, since they're all in this journey, so how will you view your journey vis-a-vis their journey in terms of balancing between religion and normal life?
Well, you've got to have a normal life. You've got to earn a living. The faith is, it's something that Peter Kahn said to me that I never forgot, and he said, there's a lot of people in a talk that he gave. There's a lot of people that are going to university and they've put the faith on hold because they're busy with their studies. And he paused at that point and he said, the cost is too great. If you leave the faith, it's kind of hard to get back into it. So you just must do it. Must be involved because there's no other options. There is no other option on the planet. And it's, and I try to get to people, well, I think we need to use different terminology. The word religion is a very unpopular word. So maybe there's another word that conveys the same thing. But we've got to have something. And at the moment, the faith is the only thing that's going to save the planet. And that sounds a bit preachy, I know, but it's prove me wrong. There you go, prove me wrong. It's kind of like I had a friend of mine that dropped out of the faith once. Well, he did. He dropped out of the faith. He sent his resignation to the National Assembly. They didn't accept it. Anyway, I saw him several years later and, he told me the story about it. And I said, well, really, I think you're really quite selfish. And he looked at me and said, well, you've either found something better and you haven't told me, selfish, or you're okay with the world the way it is. You're okay with war and famine and all that stuff. You're okay with that. Selfish. Really. So the faith is the only thing that offers any logical or, any answer at all, really. And that's the thing. If it wasn't for a Baha'i, I don't know what I'd be doing. Most people that we know socially and stuff, they don't actually, you sit there and go to see somebody for an afternoon tea or something. And you chat, and they're very keen to talk about the garden and the trip and the grandkids and stuff. But you get a bit deeper, they get a bit nervous because from their perspective, there are no answers and the problems are just simply too big.
Yeah.
So we don't want to talk about it. And so within society, generally, the same sort of thing happens. Television will entertain rather than inform. So the information that we get from the media is what somebody thinks that we would like to watch. That's it. So the news is kind of tailored to us. It's all about ratings.
Yeah.
And they'll tell us the news, but they'll put their own spin on it. And so it's important to have several different sources of news if you want to know what's going on, without locking into any particular thing. And but the news is generally quite bad out there. So that's why, you watch television of an evening in New Zealand, and you'll have it starts off with local news, and then they'll go into a bit of overseas news, and then a lot of sport, because so long as we're doing okay in the rugby, the world is good. And then a bit of weather, and that's it. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And, so long as, and it's kind of like the sport and the entertainment's there to distract us, to take our minds off the terrible things that are going on. I used to work at one stage for a company called Radio Pacific. I was an advertising sales rep for a radio company. And they had, their whole format was talkback radio. And I said to one of the hosts one day, I said, why is it always so negative? And he said to me, well, with our particular station, there is no program. The people that phone in are the program. And he said, I've got an hour on air and I can't have dead time. So I'll start my show. Oh, hi, it's so-and-so. And I'll start the hour with, look, I see in the paper that. Oh, look at that. That's good, isn't it? What are your thoughts? Nothing. Oh, I see there's another vicious dog attack. What are your thoughts? The switchboard lights up. So when things are going wrong, everybody has a say. When things are going right, they're just, oh, yeah, don't have to do anything. That stuff. So that's why that was always negative. And the sad thing is that bad news sells. Yeah. And there's been several times when newspapers have started up. The Good News newspaper went broke within 6 months. It's a weird thing. Very weird.
True.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have done 1 hour, 7 minutes.
Have you run out of tape yet?
No, we still have a long trip. Yeah, so we have done 1 hour, 7 minutes, unless you have more stories.
Oh, got heaps of stories, but, that's fine.
Yeah, next time maybe we can do a second podcast.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for
That's okay, it's a pleasure.
This.
Thank you.
Nice.
Right.
Listening to you.
Excellent. Now show me the money.
Once we make money.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.